Hey, B Third Man, Coach Field here, back for a new week. And this is one of my favorite weeks. I love talking about prayer. And the crazy part is, I'm not really good at it. I'm growing, I'm continuing to strive to be better. But historically, throughout my entire life, prayer has always been a struggle for me. I'm not sure if you feel the same way about yourself, or maybe you have this dynamic prayer life. And if you do, please, please, please spend a lot of time in the comments this week because I would love your coaching. It's just something I find to be a little difficult, but I am going to talk about how I've overcome those difficulties in the past few years. And then I'm going to offer you some encouragement. So in the scriptures, prayer is talked about over 100 times. It describes and encourages us to pray for courage, pray for hope, plead to God to hear our prayers, pray for the forgiveness of our sins and our wrongdoing, pray for other people. And then Jesus comes on the scene and he is such a witness to prayer, which we are going to dive into because I think there's some key components that Jesus models for us that are extremely important in our prayer life. But, most of you know I grew up and I still am in a very devout Roman Catholic. And in my faith background, we have a ton of very structured prayer. And I love those prayers. I hold fast to them. I cherish them. I like them because it keeps me organized. But a couple years ago, I read two books. St. Francis de Sales has a book called The Introduction to Devout Life. I read his book, and there's a ton of great wisdom in there. And in his section on prayer, he talks about how, as a faith, we have these structured prayers, but ultimately, in order for us to grow in our relationship with God, we need to be able to spend quality time with Him, that one-on-one, carefree timelessness where we really pour out our heart to Jesus and then we sit and we listen to Him in a unique way. So then one of my friends comes along and he says, "Hey, I've got a great book for you. I highly recommend it. You need to read it." And he bought me a book by Bob Beaudine called Two Chairs. And this book absolutely revolutionized my daily prayer life. And to break it down for you, Bob asks three questions in his book. Does Jesus know your situation? Is it too big for him to handle? And do you believe he has a plan for you? And if you believe those things, why are you not meeting him in what he would call two chairs? So you might be thinking, well, what's two chairs? Explain it for me. Real simple, it's this. Set an appointment with the divine architect of the entire world, Jesus, and say, "Jesus, tomorrow morning, I'm going to start with you because I'm a B-third man, right? I'm going to start with you. I'm not putting you off to the end of the day, but I want to set an appointment. Would you meet me at 6 a.m.? I'm going to have two chairs. I'm going to sit in one of them. You're going to sit in the other. And even though all of my senses are going to tell me you're not there, I know through faith that you're there. And then I'm going to pray with you. And then I'm going to ask you to speak into me what you desire for my life." So he encourages you to use the 80-20 rule. If you're not familiar with the 80-20 rule yet, it's simply this. God gets 80% of the time and you get 20. So let's say you've set your appointment for 10 minutes. From 6 to 6:10, you're going to get up and you're going to pray and you're going to spend time with Jesus. Well, the first 2 minutes is where you get to talk, and the last 8 is all about Him pouring in to you. Here's some suggestions with what to do with the first 2 minutes. We like to teach an acronym called ACTS. Acknowledge Him. All right, so that's A, acknowledge Him. C, and I'm coming up with a blank. That's embarrassing. Contrition. Okay, so C is we're going to acknowledge where we failed. T, thankfulness, and then S, supplication. Supplication is a fancy term for what is it that you desire? Does He know your situation, as Bob would say? And yes, we can sit here and we can go, well, he's Jesus. Of course, he knows my heart. And yes, that is true. But there's something good and there's something therapeutic about you telling Jesus, this is my situation. Here's my struggle right now. Here's what I'm hoping for. And then you give it to him. The hardest thing for me, and I'm inviting you this week, spend some time in Two Chairs. But the hardest thing for me is honestly to sit there and stay focused on listening to God. I'm super ADD. I love to be around people, and it pains me sometimes because I know Jesus is real. I believe in that. I believe he has a plan for me. I desperately want this intimacy, but I struggle with my attention span. So here's a little bit of an encouragement. You know, if you grew up playing sports or maybe you work out now, how many push-ups does it take to get really, really good at push-ups? In the sports world, we coach this. It's 10,000 reps. If you want to add something to your game, if you want to develop a new habit, or you want to perfect something, it's 10,000 reps or 10,000 hours. So don't think the first time you go to Two Chairs that you're going to have this like massive, overwhelming experience that's going to transform your life. Now, you might, because God can do whatever he wants. And I've had friends that I've passed this on to that they've come back to me and said, man, absolutely changed my life. I had that for a brief moment in time. And then now it's become a part of my routine, and I love my routine, and I'm better on the days when I engage with my routine. But it's not like I had this overwhelming emotional experience every time, and I don't think we should expect to have that. So if you get distracted, don't beat yourself up. Recognize that you got distracted when God's supposed to be talking to you, and that's like one spiritual push-up. Bam. Then focus back on Jesus. That's what Two Chairs is all about. When I started this habit a few years ago, I became like the biggest advocate. You would have thought I was creating a pyramid scheme for Two Chairs and Bob Bodine. And I'm still a big advocate. I teach it in the classroom that I teach in sport management. I teach it to my athletes. I share this with anybody who wants to grow in their prayer life, because the routine that it's created for me in my life has really opened up my heart and allowed God to speak to me because I'm consistently meeting him first thing in the morning. Me and my wife enjoyed it so much that we took our dining room, or what used to be our dining room, and it's now our prayer room. We have 2 blue couches. We have a book study. We have our prayer books at the coffee table, and it's just awesome. I get up, and the first thing I do every morning is I make a cup of coffee and I invite Jesus. Hey, would you meet me there tomorrow? Please, and I know you will, because when I start my days with you, it's just better. It doesn't mean that we have to throw out everything else. Maybe you're somebody that has these other prayers that you like to pray. I would definitely invite you to spend time praying for other people. Let's don't make our prayer life about us. It allows us, if we have a good, healthy prayer life, it allows us to start our day be third. God, others, me. Like I always pray for my wife and my kids before I pray for myself. First of all, they're in my thankful column. If I'm going through Acts, I adore him. I acknowledge him. Then I talk about my failings. And then when I get to thankful, it always starts with my wife. And I used to pray for my kids first, but I know now it's got to start with my wife. I have to love her. And in loving her well, I love my kids. And so I pray for her, and then I pray for my kids. And it doesn't have to take this a long time, like God knows, but I pray for them each and every day for their safety. I pray for you. I pray that people around the world will understand what it means to live a be third lifestyle, to truly put God first and put their neighbor ahead of themselves, to truly live out the gospel with an authentic love. I pray for that every day. So prayer is so important to our life. Maybe you're scrolling through social media and somebody asks you to pray. Don't just scroll past and think you'll get to it later. Stop right then and there. Say a quick prayer. Offer them up to Christ. That's what we ultimately need to be doing. And then when we do that enough, our life and our journey to becoming third in and of itself becomes a prayer. So I'm interested this week. I'm excited for you to share with me, what are some of your favorite styles of prayer? Are you really charismatic, or are you more monastic? It might surprise you. Coach Modis, super charismatic. If you know him, that wouldn't surprise you at all. but it might surprise you that I'm actually really monastic. I love when I go on retreat and I'm spending some time away from my wife and kids to grow in my relationship with God. I want to do it in a silent retreat. Or I would be more excited to go with a group of men and say, hey, we're going to go camping and fishing. And every morning we're going to start with breakfast. We're going to have a different member in the group lead us in a talk. And then we're going to split up and we're going to spend time with God in silence, in prayer. Sometimes the busyness of our life is so much that we get very distracted. We need to take some time. We need to make sure we set aside time each and every day to pray. And then, final piece of encouragement. We started our day with it. Why not bookend it? Let's start with prayer and finish with prayer, right? Hey, God, what do you want from my life today? How can I better serve you? And then we sit and listen. And then just as simple as going to bed, Lord, thank you so much for this day. I look forward to tomorrow. That can change us. And if you're a man who is leading a household, make sure, find a way to lead them in prayer each and every day. If you need some help with that, reach out to us at Be Third Men. We want to help. We can offer you a lot of different styles of prayer or some things you could do with your kids that could be fun and engaging. Throughout Christian history, there is a ton of different prayer styles. I invite you to dig in. I'm hopefully going to present some of those to you this week via our groups, and I look forward to praying with and for you this week. God bless.